Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue on with the Q&A video we started back in January. So just keeping on with where we left off, we're going to go with Eric. Eric writes in, what's the fascination with pistol caliber carbines again? And not with you, but he goes on, not with you, but in the industry, blah, 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 blah. It's okay as a range toy, but not much more than that. And he keeps going on. So we're going to summarize that and say, what's the fascination with pistol caliber carbines? A couple things. Number one, they're generally fun to shoot. However, when you compare the recoil of, say, like a 45 pistol caliber carbine versus a AR-15, generally the recoil is going to be pretty similar. And of course, the AR-15 being a rifle is going to have, generally speaking, much better lethality to it. So I understand the question and where he's coming from. That said, there are advantages to pistol caliber carbines for some folks, particularly reloaders. Easier to reload, sometimes cheaper to reload. It really depends on the load. But I mean, I guess they're fun. People like them. People have the fascination with sort of sub guns, if you will, and they look cool and they look like sort of elite folks ever since the British SAS guys were busting through windows with their MP5s. A lot of people just like that and like the look of it. And by all means, they're certainly capable. There's plenty of them out there that are very reliable and durable and easy to shoot well. So, you know, I don't have a problem with it. However, I get the point. Whereas if you're saying versus a rifle, yes, the rifle obviously brings more to the table. I agree with that. But I do have them and I like them. Justin writes in, what's your preferred way to carry a spare mag for CCW? So I carry a bunch of different guns, depending on the scenario, clothing, how long I'll be out, all stuff like that. So generally speaking, I will carry one in my back pocket, almost always on the opposite side of wherever I'm carrying, which is typically my right side. So that's generally how I do it, kind of oriented in a way that when I grab it, I can index my finger on the front of the mag where the round is and then go right in. But that's generally how I do it. Nothing too fancy there. What brand of razor do you use to shave your head? Asked Michael. Mach 3. I love the Mach 3. I've gone with some 5 blades, tried some 4 blades. I really think the 3 blade is the sweet spot for head shaving. So I've tried others, but I always go back to the Mach 3. It seems to work the best overall, at least for me. I believe it's pronounced Welter, W-E-L-T-E-R. Writes in, what do you think of fancy gun paint, says mods? So paint jobs / mods is how he writes it. So paint, by all means, if you guys are concerned with concealing yourself into your environment, works very well. Black is not a very blendable, if you will, color. I don't know if that's a word, but you guys know what I mean. So if you want to do that and blend in with your environment, by all means, paint the guns up. Of course, there's may or may not affect resale value, depending on how you do it and if you do it, you know, well or anything like that. So, but your gun, your choice. By all means, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Modifications, I think it depends on the purpose, right? So, if it serves a purpose and helps you either be more proficient in a match, a shooting match that you're doing, or helps you be more lethal in a defensive encounter without sacrificing safety, by all means, have at it. That's up to you. Your choice, ultimately. Next up, Steve writes in 10.5 or 11.5 inch AR upper for an SBR for close quarters battle. So if you haven't checked out my video yet on AR barrel lengths, I highly, highly recommend it. I go into these types of subjects in mind-numbing detail as to reasons why and all the numbers behind them and stuff like that. So if you guys haven't seen that and you're interested in this topic, check it out. That said, my simple answer is going to be 11.5 for reliability and velocity issues, and you're really not giving up much, just an inch, and it really is worth it. I explained in that video why that is. I just probably take too long to do it, but 11.5 is my answer. What's your favorite NFL team? Carolina Panthers, by all means. I didn't start watching football. Some of you guys got confused by that, knowing I'm from New England. I didn't watch football growing up. Very odd childhood, and I didn't watch it until I moved to the South. And of course, now I'm totally into it. And Carolina's our local team down here, and finally they had a decent year. So Carolina Panthers are the team. Dean writes in, are there any disadvantages to short throw safeties on ARs for serious use? I don't know. There's none that I know of. I can tell you that much. In my experience, there's no disadvantages to them. I don't know that there's a huge advantage to them. I personally prefer them. but I don't have them on all my guns. In fact, my defensive home defense gun does not have one, so that kind of shows you the priority I put on it. They're a nice to have in my opinion. I don't know of any disadvantages. I've never experienced one. If you guys know of one, by all means post one in the comment section. So other than that, I do not know. Ryan writes in, is an AK-74 variant still your go-to rifle? I guess it sort of depends how we phrase this. It is my go-to rifle in terms of if I could choose one rifle to be on a two-way range with against people and not a 500-yard engagement against like a T-72 or something like that. General battlefield type conditions. AK-74 would be my personal choice. However, our home defense rifle in our house is an AR-15 due to the factor of family members having to employ it. My family is much more proficient with AR-15s than any other rifle. So, and I'm just fine with an AR-15, so I don't have an issue with it. Casey writes in, have you considered asking the NRA and others if they would discount you with a code, or they could offer a discount to your subscribers? So I doubt the NRA knows who I am. They're pretty big folks and probably don't care at all about the 100+ thousand subscribers that we have here. But yeah, so to answer your question, I do always, I shouldn't say always, but usually ask folks to get a subscriber discount if they offer it. I always post it in the videos. And of course, folks follow me on Facebook. I post them up all the time for folks who do offer discounts. There's several companies that do, and I will usually include that when sharing links over there for folks to look into. So yes, I ask people for it. No, I doubt the NRA cares at all about the Mr. Guns and Gear channel. I am just a small guy in the industry, and they're big. Jimmy writes in on the topic of a light for your CCW, your concealed carry weapon, for those of you that are new. Am I for or against it, and why? Okay, so I'm neither for nor against it. I think it is a good idea. The odds of getting into a gunfight in a low light situation are higher than getting into a gunfight in a non-low light situation. There's a myriad of statistics that back that up. So of course, a light is advantageous in that scenario, not just as an offensive tool for perhaps temporarily blinding your opponents. Of course, you don't want to count on that, but it could help. As well as identifying the threat. Of course, in a lot of low light environments, you still can identify, but having that light definitely gives you a much better chance of doing so, particularly in a no light type of environment or a very low light environment. So if it fits into your system and you train with it and are proficient with it and are comfortable carrying it, yes, I'm for it. If it doesn't and you just don't like it, I'd rather you carry a gun without a light than not carry a gun. So either way is good by me. It makes sense though, but folks that don't like them, that makes sense as well. Keep carrying your guns and we'll all be better off for it. Next up, Dean writes in, where can I get one of those AKs that Larry Vickers was shooting in 5.45 that had no recoil? Thanks. So as far as I know, the AK-107s are available for Russian military folks, maybe some special police units, so you can go over there and enlist in those units and join those units and you can get one. Other than that, it's probably not going to happen because of the import ban on Russian rifles, so you guys can thank the government for that, that they know which guns you should have, of course, because they are all-knowing and they know things like that. So unfortunately, the 107 is probably not coming to America anytime soon. Hopefully somebody here in America takes the idea and rips it off like the Russians always do to our ideas and brings that type of technology here, because it certainly is kind of a cool technology. But the AK-107 is a sweet rifle for sure. I'm hoping to get my hands on one. I'm going to nag Larry personally and see if we can make that happen. So we'll see. No promises, but we'll see. It's a sweet one for sure. Jeff writes in, do you have a specific defensive round in 5.56, 308, and 7.62 by 3.9 that is your go-to for those rifle calibers? Yes. For me, in 5.56, which is the only one of those calibers that I employ currently as a defensive rifle, I choose the 75 grain Hornady Tap. It's a very good round. It delivers a lot of energy on target. It's very accurate. Not that that really matters too much for home defense type scenarios, but it is very accurate. And of course, does a good job of fragmenting upon impact, and has sort of a proven track record in the law enforcement communities where it's actually been tested real life and has shown pretty good results. One of the funny things is that people always think, ARs are going to over penetrate. Now that is a heavy for caliber round. And if you guys actually look up a lot of the law enforcement studies of this, they've shown that if anything, it almost under penetrates, where it sort of gets the 11 to 13 inch range. which is okay for me. Of course, we'd always like a little bit more, but it's just sort of one of those myths that people always think about. That's absolutely not true in reality. So that is a good round. Of course, the Spear Gold .62 grain is also a very good round. There's a section over on AR15.com that, if I remember, I'll link to down below, with a lot of very good documented ballistics testings and rounds that are recommended. In 308, the Winchester round, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, is a very good one. We've tested it here before. And also, of course, the Hornady SST bullet is a good round with 7.62 by 39. You do have to be careful for over penetration, so definitely check your ballistics and do a little bit more study on those, because it is a much greater possibility for that round. In 308, the AMAX round is a very good round for human beings, size animals. Of course, for larger animals, we probably want to go a little bit different, but the AMAX rounds do really well. There's lots of other good ones out there, though, of course. Kevin writes in, what's the best 3 rails handguards for the money? Haha, good question. For the money, really tough to beat the Magpul MOE series. They're just good. They work well. That includes the SL series. And for most folks, they're going to do more than what you want. Additionally, another really good one for the money is going to be the ALG series. Their M-Lock rails are exceptional, especially for the money. And the Midwest Industries, their Gen 3 ones that are out, I believe they're both key mod and M-Lock, very, very good rails for the money. So any of those three recommend, again, for the money. Justin writes in, where's the 1911s? In my safe. I don't know. On the channel, I have plenty of 1911 reviews. They're out there. I have at least 10, if not more, 1911 reviews. So if you haven't seen them, check the history. They're there. Timothy writes in, favorite barrel maker for the AR-15? You know, I really don't have one. It's an interesting question. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend you check out my AR-15 barrel specs video. In there, I mispronounced some words, which is mildly entertaining, but the science that I discuss in the video is still very valid. And I go into the pros and cons of different materials, different treatments, different testing that goes into barrels and stuff like that. So really what matters in barrels is that you have a quality material with a quality treatment and quality control, if that makes sense, or high quality control, where they're held to good tolerances. There's a myriad of good ones, of course, Aero, Ballistic Advantage, Faxon Firearm, BCM, well, anything made by FN for that matter. I'm sure there are other ones. Mega makes really good barrels. There's others that I'm sure I'm missing, and if I am, I apologize. But lots of good ones out there. Just check that video out for selecting the right material for your purpose. Rob writes in, if society actually did start to collapse and we were facing a possible civil war, what would be your first course of action? My first course of action would be to watch the news and inform myself as best as possible, particularly of things that are happening locally, because that's what's going to affect you before anything nationally. Well, of course, unless you live in DC or something like that. So that would be my first course of action, to inform myself, so that way I can make better decisions just down the road. KORBYN, Corbin, I believe it's pronounced, writes in, what's the best affordable 223-556 scope for long range accuracy at distance? There isn't one. There isn't a best. There's lots of good ones. And again, budget's going to vary. So some folks are going to say for the money and they're going to mean under $1,000. Some folks are going to say for the money and they're going to mean under $300 and so forth. It runs the myriad of the scale. So lots of good ones. And budget price optics, Bushnell makes good budget price optics. Some of their elite series, particularly if you get them on sale, are very good. SWFA makes very good budget optics. Primary Arms makes very good budget optics, and Vortex makes very good budget optics. There's probably some I didn't recommend there, I didn't put in that list, but all of those make scopes that give you a lot of value for the money. So some of those are all pretty good, depending on what you're actually looking for out of that scope. Scott writes in, what guns do you think our military should use? M16A5, AK-105, P07, etc. Well, I sort of addressed the pistol issue in one of the earlier Q&A videos that we just did, so definitely check that out. What our military should use, it should use whatever they determine is the best functioning rifle for the soldiers, airmen, marines, and sailors that have to use them. Really, you would have to have a very broad range of testing for a broad range of scenarios. And honestly, I just simply don't have that knowledge in front of me to decide. What I will say is that there's lots of serviceable ones out there. The M16 in multiple different variants, M4, M16, M4A1, etc. All very good rifles. The AK variants are all very good rifles. Of course, the Scars are great, as well as, you know, the Tavor. There's lots of good ones that I would say are very acceptable military use rifles. The AUG is also another one. So certainly there's a bunch of them out there that would fit the role and do quite well. And of course, the mission is always going to be different. You know, when folks were over in Afghanistan, getting engaged typically at 500 yards is a very different scenario than the folks that were over in Iraq getting engaged at, you know, room distance up to 100 yards. It's a very different type of weapon that excels for that. So I don't know if there's particularly one rifle that's the best, but certainly a lot of good ones out there to choose from. Any of those I think are perfectly serviceable surface weapons. Brandon writes in and says, well, he says a lot of stuff, but I'm going to try to summarize it here for you guys. The FN, FAL, or the PTR 91 type rifles, for a 308 battle rifle, you can trust your life to. I'm guessing that's a question. It ends in a period, but I'm going to go with it as a question. So certainly the FN, FAL, absolutely 100% is a rifle you can trust your life to. Lots of folks have, and they've done so successfully. It's a good rifle. And of course, 308 is a hard-hitting round for a military type caliber. The PTR 91, I honestly don't have a ton of experience with them, but of course they come from a great lineage, and if built correctly, should be perfectly reliable. Again, I don't have a ton of experience with them like I do with the FAL, but by all means, they seem to be good rifles. Like any gun, as long as you test it out with the ammo that you want to use through a variety of shooting scenarios and determine that it's reliable enough for you, good to go. But they certainly seem to be a decent battle rifle platform, if you will. So with that, I think we're going to cut this video off. We'll probably do one more here in the series of questions. Hopefully you guys got something out of this and didn't exactly fall asleep during it. But as always, I thank you guys for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing, and we hope to see you guys in the next video.